Well, welcome everyone to our January 6th, 2026 Ogden City Council work session. And let the record reflect that all council members are present, and we're embarking on a new year, and everything is going well. To just review our agenda for our council meeting today. Hopefully you've looked at that. It's just booked with lots and lots of things. Not really. We have a recognition for Brad Mortensen Day, and you'll notice that Ken is dressed for the occasion, has his purple suit, which he brings out for these kind of things. So that's really good. Yeah. And then we also have the fiscal year 2024-25 audit report, as well as the 2024 annual comprehensive financial report that we're going to be presented with. And then we have our new business, which is the election of our council vice chair for the next month. So then we'll have public comments. And are there any questions or comments that you have any questions answered about our agenda? Okay. All right. Then we will start with our our work session agenda, which is the administrative update, and we have Mara to present to us. And maybe the mayor. Sorry, I didn't get you right on the top of the list there. Okay. All right.
This one does not say hot mic, so. Thank you. I've asked Mara to join me. She's my right hand in administrative matters. So I didn't get a chance yesterday in the ceremony to say anything, so I just want to tell you guys welcome. Congratulations. What you're going to find is that we are a very collaborative, open, and cooperative administration. I've been in your seat before. I know the pressures and what it's like to work with an administration. And so I strive to be a very open and transparent administration, and my staff is committed to that. That's the directive that they're given. So we look forward to giving you all the information that we can to help you understand and make good decisions on your part. And one thing that I've always done is I've never held a vote against anybody. I've never faulted anybody for a vote. All I've ever asked for was an open mind and an open ear, and whatever your vote is what your vote is, because that's the system, that's the form of government, that's your role, your responsibility, and I respect it. And you'll see me defer a lot to your authority and to your role in this form of government, because it's important for the city, it's important for me, and I hopefully it's important for you too. So welcome aboard. And as Mayor and I talked, we thought we'd cover a couple things. An update on Taylor Canyon, and then an update on the trail decision that I made. The Taylor Canyon, sorry, is you guys had your council vote. You passed your resolution. You made pretty clear that you want to explore purchasing it, removed potentially what it would be used for, but I've kind of gone on my end wanting to pursue that property under the understanding that it would be for open space. The final decision on that, of course, is your guys'. But wanted to let you guys know that we've been in talks with the school board and the school district administration, and that they've been very healthy. One thing that I maybe as a perspective, as a position and a paradigm that I come into when I talk with the school district, and it's something that I've talked with them early on, is that we are one city, and we are different than other districts and cities where they have multiple cities within school district boundaries. And we share the exact same boundary, and it's kind of a luxury, actually. But I've always impressed upon the district that I want to make sure that we are very cooperative in our capital planning and in the use of facilities, use of parks and playgrounds, field surfaces, etc. And so we do have a cooperative agreement with the school district on use of those facilities. There are challenges, however, on the coordination of that. But coming into the Taylor Canyon process, I felt like we owe to the taxpayers the fact that we want to make sure that we are on the same page and that we're not, the word that some people have used is paying for it twice or whatever. It's kind of semantics a little bit, but I want to make sure that we are thinking about our capital investments as one set of taxpayers. It's the same families and the same kids that are impacted. And so I just want to report back to you guys that we've had meetings with the school district, and there are a number of options and opportunities that we can explore with them. Those opportunities and options are going to be challenging and take some time, recognizing that statute has timelines and time limits that we are required to follow. And so that's where a lot of the struggle and challenge has been for me, is making sure that we stay in that lane, but being able to have open conversations with the district that probably don't jive with that timeline. And so just want to let you guys know that those conversations continue. I think that there are some options that we can consider, none of which I'm ready to announce. But I also, when I'm having those discussions, I want you guys to know that I'm not going to be making decisions for you. I'm going to be working to give options and put them before you for your decision to make. And I also want to respect the boundaries of the district and make sure that the school board members have their space and their authority respected as well. And when I talk with the school administration, they work for the school board, so they can't always speak for the school board. So that's kind of the dynamic we have right now, but I really feel optimistic about us being able to put some really good options in front of you guys for how we proceed. And so that's where that's at. I know it's not probably the specificity you're looking for, but is there any questions on that?
Mayor, I do have a question that has kind of come up. We're kind of in this appraisal process right now, right? And I was wondering if we've directed the appraiser to give us values at its current zoning and as O1.
Do you know Gary was going to look at the legality of the appraisal requirement?
We're not yet moving forward with an appraisal based on some of the conversations that we are having with the school district, but we're recognizing that we're in kind of this next statutory 60-day phase, but we may be extending that in cooperation with the school district and school board, so that but everything that we do is in communication with them, and we would proceed in a parallel fashion, basically.
The reason I ask is just because if the conversations go that way, I don't want to have to back up. See what I mean?
Sure.
So that's why I ask.
My understanding is there's flexibility for us to extend the deadlines. If we get to a point where there's an outright purchase being pursued, then we'll need that appraisal. And then at that point, I think we would talk about if we do it at the current zoning or at the open space. But either way, that I do 100% want the district to know that we respect their authority. We also respect the fact that they have decisions to make around the value of their assets for educational purposes. And so that's kind of the technical thing. They had to make that decision per law on the surplus side. How we get to where that thing goes, I think there's some flexibility there. And we're going to need that, especially if we're going to look at all the different options that are smart and common sense for taxpayers. You know what I mean? Because we own a lot of property as well. We own a lot of parks. They use a lot of our parks for sports, etc. We use a lot of their schools for sports, etc. We want to look at that entire matrix and see what that particular piece of property can mean for that and others that we have, etc. So that's kind of, those are all the things that we're talking about, are options and ideas. So, yeah.
Mayor, I had just a question as we're thinking about current efforts with our parks. I know that I think I saw was like over $7 million over the last several years in improvements. We've got Lester Park that's currently undergoing some work there, and hopefully more to come. The 4th Street Park, the redevelopment down that way. I'm just wondering, how does this fit into that? Does this disrupt what's currently being done or planned with those other areas, like as far as the timeline, or can we move forward together, or how does that all look?
Great question. So the numbers I remember, don't hold me to it, as hardened audited number in my head anyway, is it was about $7.5 million invested in parks and upgrades in the last, I think, 5 years. We're gonna report in the state of the city, I think it was 8 pretty significant upgrades in parks in the last year alone. We do have 2-something million for the lesser park set aside already. I think the total need there is 4. So we're gonna keep just pursuing that in the upcoming budget, but we'll start turning dirt on those in the spring, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The 4th Street Ballpark has huge opportunities that are gonna cost, and we wanna pursue that. The point being, if we do have to spend appraised value for this piece of property, it will have that impact. If we can find a way that we can reduce that amount or eliminate it, ideally, it does not disrupt that. So those are the resource allocation decisions that would come, but I'm trying to get to a point where we reduce that impact as much as possible. But that's not completely my call. I gotta respect the district's needs.
Chair, if it's okay if I make a comment, and I just wanted to kind of comment about that idea around double paying or whatever, which I think I mentioned before, but I don't think I was trying to say it's double paying. My point was that we already own the property as Ogden
As
City
people, right.
taxpayers
Right.
for the school district, so we already own it. And so that was my point, wasn't that we're double buying it, but it's certainly a challenge, you know, in light of some of these other conversations too. But having lived about a half block away from there too, definitely it's on my mind when we had talked before, I guess about 8 years ago or so, when we were on this side together about the parks and recreation usage and the amount of green space we have available and all that. I mean, my yard was really giant up there, and a lot of the yards are really big too. And so I totally get the idea of having some third space or a meeting space for community in that area. But it definitely concerns me when people are saying they don't have green space or access to green space in that neighborhood, when I fully know that most people have a pretty large yard. And then also the mountain is right behind them too. So I just think those are, you know, definitely things that I think about too. And it's certainly that I think that I won't be here anymore, but as a resident, I would be totally, you know, happy to support having partial use of that space for some kind of community space and then also housing too. So
Sure.
I'm totally open to those kind of conversations, because I also think when we were hearing from those constituents, I don't know if they'll understand the impact of having giant field space up in their neighborhood. We talked about this at Lester Park, right?
Mhm.
When one of the ideas was to have 2 U12 fields at Lester Park. And I said, I don't think that will work. Number one, we have the green space for that, but imagine how many people that means, because teams are really large and then all their families come, and then there's the people on the bench, and they're like, where would all those people go? You know, so I just think those are things that maybe they're not necessarily comprehending at this time, that if it's kind of a field space, that's going to have a different impact on their neighborhood than they probably realize, because they haven't had that. It's kind of a hidden gem.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And to back up a little bit, you're not the only one I've heard had that, the comment about double whatever. I don't think anybody's wrong in the way they describe it. I understand where they're coming from, and you included. It's so yeah, but at the end of the day, I agree with you that we're one taxpayer, one city, one set of families. It's all the same. We have not got to the point with the neighborhood to talk about what amenities would be there if we were to acquire this. Some of the input that I have heard, however, is that they're very happy with the current amenitization. They love just having the open space and the access to that property. And so I don't know that there would be a ton of pushback if it remained as it is. I'm sure they would love to see investment though in additional improvements that we can make there. So anyway, if to get back to Councilmember Ritchie's question, my goal is to continue to make as much progress as we possibly can on parks, recreation, and open space. It's a big priority for me. It's what I spent my entire professional career in life doing, is providing access to opportunity and recreation and open space. So I bring that passion with me, and I want to continue to push that forward as much as we can. if we can find a way to make this work with the district support, I think it continues to keep pedal on the metal on other parks, including your neighborhood or Lester Park, right? So that's my goal. Hopefully that is a goal you guys support as well. All right, moving on. Okay. So let's talk about the trail. Obviously, everybody's talking about it, especially today. One thing that you guys are going to find is there's a lot of hard decisions to be made in this job. This one certainly is one of them. If we back up, I think people know the history. Long time ago, that area was under a completely different type of use prior to the golf course. It was a lot of OHV use, motorcycles, vehicles were up there, parties, vandalism, things like that. So the golf course came in as an opportunity to have open space and recreational opportunity that captured that space. And when that happened, our long ago leaders, and someone sent a letter to the editor recently, is Jay Hudson. He's a kind of an older guy that long history in trail advocacy. And what he says, they foresaw the issue of competing recreational interests in this area. And that's why they designed the trail system the way that they did, was to have Gibbs, not as Gibbs Trail, but as Gibbs Loop that looped around the golf course. Now, over time, especially in the last probably a couple administrations ago, that was kind of holding that line became quite lax. So the official trail went around the golf course, but enforcing it became more lax over time. It was sort of hit and miss, and unofficial trails began to get created and expectations for recreation on the golf course. At the same time, conflicts between golfers and trail users increased, and we started to see issues with that. We did have some reports of close calls recently, and there is definitely an element of danger and risk around having trail users on the golf course and golf balls flying around. So last spring, we made the decision, because we got a letter around risk, to re-up our emphasis on keeping those uses separate because of the financial implications and the legal implications to the state or to the city in part. Obviously, I got a lot of criticism for that, and it turned into a whole thing. I get the criticism. Actually, I own the criticism. I'm not going to hide from it. I accept the criticism and own it, because one of the big critiques was that I didn't do a very good job with community engagement and listening to the community and reaching out to the community. So as all that happened, we listened to all of the input, and I committed to evaluate options for the golf course and for trail use. I made it very clear that I wasn't going to do it again without doing a better job with community engagement. That's where we set out to develop a survey. We knew that because of our experience and knowing that all of the different users that love to recreate in that area, that we were going to get a lot of input from multiple sides. So we reached out to a third party, Logan Simpson, asked them to develop a survey for us. It's a very simple survey, frankly. We didn't necessarily need a third party for that, but we wanted a third party because we wanted to make sure that we were not advertently or inadvertently or perceived as introducing bias into the survey or into the process. So they developed a few question survey. We did put it back to the trail group and trail users for input on the trail questions, and they gave us their input, right? And then we put the survey out. We put the survey out through our email list on the golf list. We posted it on various social media locations, and the trail advocates did the same on their end. We left it out there for a while and continued to receive input. During the period where we were receiving input from the public, we were getting input from both sides. We were tracking on when the social media pushes went out from the trail advocates and when the email went out from us, and when would be an appropriate time to close it when we started to see a slowdown on survey inputs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I asked our staff to begin to prepare a plan for building a trail that cut through the course and what that would look like, how much it would cost, when could take place, what it would entail. We started on a place, the location of the trail that we put out to the public and asked for their input on is where the trail advocates brought to us the night we were in the council meeting, and they actually had the handout. So that was kind of our starting point. And they were very helpful and worked in good faith to help us arrive at where that location would be. I was really clear that I wanted to listen to the public and the public input. I was absolutely willing to put a trail in there if that was where the public input came back. The input came back approximately split. There's some debate to be had around confusion and lack of clarity in the questioning on the survey. I get that. We've heard input from both the golf community and from the trail community about quote bias. So in my mind, I think we must have hit some sort of a balance if we're accused of bias the other direction from both sides. But it came back approximately balanced. And I made clear as well in a number of ways that I'm after as much opportunity and access and recreation for as many people as possible. I'm very neutral on which type. I just want as much access and opportunity as possible for parks, for recreation, for trails. And I do consider golf as active recreation. So that would be that's my goal and a fundamental basis for my decision-making is to make sure that we're representing everybody's voice and making a decision that allows for as much opportunities for as many people as possible. I'm not a stranger to this kind of conflict. In my prior career, I was always trying to manage multiple uses in public lands and doing so under the federal mandate of sustained yield. And it is not uncommon to have this kind of conflict amongst different user types. And so that's where we found ourselves today. I asked my staff to continue to assemble as much information and get, including public input, what it would look like to build the trail. I also wanted to know what could we expect in terms of trail use and future trends and projections into the future, as well as the same for golf. And I asked for what have we seen in response to the golf community and the golf experience during the period that we did have it closed this summer. What we learned and found, and there's going to be more that I can remember and share, is we saw a big spike in golf participation. Word started to travel around the golf community that we are no longer, quote, the dog park. People didn't want to quote golf at a dog park. That's kind of the MO that we heard a lot from the golf community. And so that we saw a dip in participation and use as a result of that, we think. We also saw a big reduction in vandalism as a result of the closure as well. And so those are a couple other key data points beyond just the public input, which again was reasonably split. And I'm looking for balance. So I decided to stick with the current plan or the existing plan, the same plan that our leaders before us foresaw, to have a Gibbs loop that goes around, have golf that plays in the middle. And what we've seen is a pattern of increase to the scale that we're seeing revenues that get us into the black on our golf operation and then some. And I think it's an opportunity for us to use some of that revenue to invest back into outdoor recreation opportunities at the golf course in the winter, because the winter recreation activities are supported by the golf fund as well. So that's some of the background. There's more I can share, I'm sure. Some of that will probably come up when you guys ask questions. So I'm open to any questions. Is there anything else I should mention, missed, or anything? Okay, that's just off the top of my head, so.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. First, I think the history we got there is there's a little bit of a different version. It wasn't that the use of that trail wasn't just a lack of enforcement. It was full-on endorsement by previous administrations, including the mayor himself using the trail regularly. So it was a endorsed trail for a long period of time. It sounds like, is it correct to say that this survey results had a lot of bearing on the decision, and was the decision not to do the alternate trail route? And did the survey result, were the survey results a major driving factor in that?
They were a factor because public input and public sentiment and what people want is a big driver of how I act and how I serve. So I do seek to listen to people and figure out what it is they're looking for. So from that perspective, yes. Was it the only factor? No.
When the survey came to me, I recognized immediately that the question itself was confusing. I didn't feel like I could answer that yes or no and get my perspective into the question. I actually ended up not taking it. You can see that in the data results, that people answered yes that meant no, and people answered no that meant yes. You can see that in the data. I know there's also a lot of concern about how over the course of the survey, it was leaning towards trail users and access towards that trail or an alternate trail for a good chunk of the survey. And at the last minute, 400 or so no votes came in. I think that puts into question the validity of a survey and whether we should be making decisions off of a survey that clearly showed some reasons why it may not be a representative sample size.
So at the same time, you've seen the same information that I have because you're in touch with the same people that we're sharing all of this information with transparently, right? My understanding from memory is that the spike at the end actually coincided with the spike or in the timing of the survey being pushed on social media on the trail side. And then that response was a no in response, which, so I guess there's a confounding factor to what you're saying is that they pushed out the survey more and more people saw it as a result and then answered no. So
I don't know if we can lead that. I think that's perfect evidence that if there are confounding, that it's probably not a representative sample.
I think it's pretty also evident that I thought it was a pretty simple survey. It was really short, really straightforward to me. And we asked for the input from the trail community. And I wish in going back in time that we could have changed it to if they had that concern. They didn't foresee it at that time, at least not based on the input that we got from them. So we were very transparent about the questions before they went out because we didn't want to run into this problem. And we asked for their input and we didn't get that input at the time. So to get it now is unfortunate. But again, it's not the only factor. But I didn't go into it expecting, because I have a background in science and social science especially, I didn't go into it expecting to have a perfectly scientific conclusion. I need to understand and characterize where does our public land on this thing? Where are we at? If it's an overwhelming sentiment one way or the other, that's really helpful. It came back fairly split. So whether it's 52% one way and 48 the other way, or 51 and 49, not as significant to me. Trying to characterize public input and public sentiment through that tool. And I think that it did that for us generally. But again, to be dealing with concerns of bias both ways suggests to me, I mean, you can, for you, it would probably suggest otherwise. To me, it suggests that both sides see it as favoring the other. And so we must have hit some sort of happy median. That's where I'm at. But that was also why we hired the third party to give us the analysis and to give us the characterization of the interpretation of the results to remove our bias from it as well. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I'll
Topic or different topic?
sorry. I'll just make a finishing point because I respect the opinions that you're sharing. Like I get where you're coming from. The thing about this decision in particular, it's a perfect example. I've got hard decisions to make in this job. I'm not here to do the easy things, right? I got to do the right things and the hard things sometimes. This is an area where I knew regardless of what I decided, there was going to be approximately half of our community and of users that were going to be upset. And so I'm not looking to pick one over the other. But personally, I'm a user of both. I mean, I remember you mentioned in social media, that's where a great place to teach your kids how to ride a bike is Kids Loop. That's where I taught my kids as well. I used Kids Loop a ton in my life. And so I'm not looking to pick one group over another. I'm just trying to create a situation where people have access to good quality recreational opportunity that's safe, and that we can make sure that we're accommodating future trends and demands and needs. And we are predicting, without a doubt, increasing and ramped up demands for both activities. And so the original plan for having Gibbs Loop be a loop made sense then, it makes sense now. So that's the direction that I decided on, and intend to proceed moving forward.
And just for clarity, when I was teaching my kids to ride bikes up there, Gibbs Loop was closed to bikes. And so it was the trail through the golf course that I taught my kids to ride on. Is that the future plan for Gibbs Loop Trail?
For bikes, that's all stuff that I want to leave to the trail community to help me advise. But I used to access along the same route, because you know how on 29th, 28th trailhead, you access the entire network up
Nice.
there, and you can do that intermediate trail that goes up really high. That was the trail that we were always accessing, and then we would come down on the south end, but I always went around. There was always that. For me and for a lot of people we heard from it throughout this process, that was their understanding as well. That's why they went around. That's why it was called a loop. But also, I just didn't ride through a golf course because at the golf course and there's active golfing going on. And so a lot of people that we heard from in the golf community, especially, to see this as like, why are we arguing about that? And so they're a lot less vocal in the public because they see it as just makes sense and common sense. But I get where you're coming from too, because you have developed a pattern of use and that an expectation that comes with that. And I understand that. And I love to ride. I'm not as avid and hardcore about it as you are, but I get it because it's a valuable activity.
Yeah, and the trail above that you're speaking of, it's called the Foothill Bike Trail, I believe. That's not a trail I could teach my kids to ride bikes on. There's a lot of exposure, larger climb. And so I think that's at the heart of the issue. I just want to make that clear.
Yep. I taught my kids there and it was a challenge because of the steepness, especially if you're going north to south. It's a climb. It's a grind, but mountain biking is a grind. Probably the worst grind I've ever been on was with you at Powder Mountain. And so I taught the kids that, yeah, they had to walk their bike at times, but they also on the other side got to have some downhill and learn how to navigate all those headers that way too. So, but we also are looking at opportunities. The council's been very supportive of improvements and stabilization of a number of trails up there. And the prior council has appropriated $30,000 that we leveraged into 60 with our partnership at the Trails Foundation. And just prior to the end of the year, we appropriated with your guys' support. You guys appropriated another 100,000, which we'd love to leverage again for another 100,000 if we can in the 2026. So that could be upwards of, at least if we can leverage 100,000, $250,000 in trail investment, and we can look at additional improvements through the trail community that way too. So I'm not looking at just doing a decision on the golf course without thinking about investments and improvements in the trail side too.
If I can just throw something out for just as food for thought. You know, over the years when we've done non-scientific surveys, it seldom ever goes well because everybody hangs their hat on this is a real survey and it's going to tell us what to do, when in fact it really becomes who can drive more people to the survey. And it doesn't really give you accurate data per se. So if you were having polling done, then that would be more of a scientific survey. But where there's just free access to a survey and anybody can take it, and if you go to a different IP address, you can take it again, and you know, all of those kind of things, they kind of make it less relevant. Other than, you know, I know why you did it because you wanted to get the feedback. But to hang your hat on a non-scientific survey is, I think, is crazy because it's just not scientific. And you know the way those things come in, it is who's driving people to the survey, and that's why they come in big lumps. And I think it's explained that way. The other thing that I think it's easy for us as council members to get more invested in this when it really isn't a council initiative. It's it's purely administrative. It's, I guess, I don't know what we could do as a council anyway, because it's an administrative action. Isn't that right? That's the way we understand this? Yeah, okay. So I just think we need to keep that in perspective too.
Yeah, and to get to your point about hanging your hat on the survey, if I wanted this to be a scientific survey, I probably would have written it myself. Because it would have required a multi-strata random survey. Those strata being weekday versus weekend being lumped in with holiday. Looking at time of day of use, and looking at time of year, and then looking at type of activity and type of use. And then you'd have to have a random sample and survey of the whole representative within each of those strata in order to have, that's an exceedingly expensive and time intensive and laborious process. And if that's what we were after, that's what we would have done. It would cost us a fortune to have it done. I was looking for something that helps characterize and give me some sense and sentiment from the public, so that I'm not hanging my hat on it, but it is a factor in my decision making and an important one because I'm trying to serve the public the best I can. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
It's a tough issue, and I don't know if, it's hard to say there's a right answer for sure. I mean, I respect the mayor's decision. I hope there's still maybe some compromise options. I know that like the cross-country runners, they would love to access that, but it would be before golf hours, most of those runs are happening at that time. But also, as I think about there's so many other places as well in the city for recreation and learning how to ride a bike. The Parkway is a great place. Up top at 9th Street, you've got the bike park, and there's some lower areas where there's opportunities as well. I just chuckled because there was a dad trying to teach his son how to ride a bike and had tied a rope to the back of his bike. And they came past me, and dad passed me on one side and son passed me on the other. And all of a sudden I'm getting my legs on, what is happening here? So that's not the best way to teach your kid how to ride a bike. But anyway, so I mean, hopefully, again, as we look at this, it's, we look at one pocket of the city, there's a lot of, there's a big area and a lot of opportunities that way. And maybe there's some things, we don't own the bike park up on the top of 9th Street, the land there, but, maybe one day we will, where did Justin go? Anyway. But yeah, it's a big issue, and I think if there's some compromise or there's a way to make it work, then I appreciate you being willing to talk through those things.
Well, thanks for the comment too. And I think that's part of why I don't know there's a right or a wrong decision. It's just the job too. But I got a lot of mixed feedback from the trail advocacy groups too, the Trails Foundation and the Trails Network. The Trails Foundation was like, no, that doesn't make sense. You have a network and a map and a plan, and that's all set out and laid out for a reason. The Trails Network individually gave us input that was more like, yeah, maybe that'll help focus the pressure in the access, because to get back to the earlier conversation, council member, in years in the past, it wasn't a trail. It was trails all over the course, right? There was multiple inputs and access points, and then people were walking anywhere and everywhere they wanted. Now, there were some places that got more use and more wear, right? And there were places of more direct cut through. But to me, it wasn't about a trail, but we were trying to find a location that we could facilitate that cut through. We did find a spot where there's some really tight places, and there's a lot of convergence of golf carts coming screaming downhill that often screech when they're coming to a stop there because they're going so fast and out of control. This year we had a man break a leg, in fact, because they tipped the golf cart in that exact location. And so to start to mix in crossing of the users in that point introduces more safety concerns, frankly, in an area that already had some history there. And so anyway, I say all that because the sentiment that we got from the trail groups was maybe it can help focus the access and the pressure, but maybe it also facilitates additional access that then bleeds off. And so we were going to be looking at a strong enforcement to make sure everybody stays on and cuts through immediately, which then bleeds into police resourcing, et cetera, on other issues. So it's a lot of different factors to consider, the survey being one of them. Is it an important one? Yes. but the costs, the bandwidth concerns across the city, the input I get from the trail user groups, the input I get from the public, the safety concerns and the issues and the input that we got from Irma on risk, I mean, there's a bunch of other things still. So anyway, you get the point. Lots of factors in this job that you have to consider, and a lot of pressures in people. So I made the decision that I made with the best information I possibly could, and recognizing that it was going to be unpopular one way or the other.
Another item?
What's that?
Got another item?
I don't think so. Is there anything else?
Oh, wow.
No, unless you guys have anything. So.
Right. Any other council business or?
My last time to ask questions on this seat. So I do have a couple just to follow up items, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to send these before. But I'll definitely be paying attention to this even when I'm not on the council. But I was wondering if we had any other updates about like the flock surveillance that we had the outreach from Taylor about all those things. I know we reached back out to him to say, yeah, thanks so much for asking, but I haven't really heard back from the administration about that issue. So I don't know if we're going to have an update about it or.
Sorry, we put an update to the public as a whole on that, explaining what they are, how we use them,
Wait, I must have missed
what our
that.
policy is.
Yeah, where
In
was
fact,
that?
well, we had a recent case around a kidnapping that we were able to leverage that kind of technology to bring that kid home from safety. But there's some really rigid sideboards on how that technology can and can't be used. And we fit within those sideboards. Those sideboards are set in state statute. And we actually have policies that are more restrictive.
Yeah, and I've
access.
seen some legislation that's coming up again in the next session that will limit it even further too. And I remember, Councilmember Lopez and I, Luis Lopez, and I met with the ACLU and the chief, and they felt comfortable with how we were monitoring it and everything at that time too. So I was just a little bit curious about. So where was the update?
On our police social media.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'll check that out.
Okay, that it?
If I may, the mayor touched on a couple of things that maybe we could provide a little more clarity on. The Lester Park thing, about a year ago, a grant was submitted by and prepared by Weber State University, and it was not accepted by
Correct.
RAMP. And at that point in time, as I believe you and I spoke, we were going to hold that money back and make another run at it. The deadline for submission of grant to RAMP is the 16th. Are we on track to submit a RAMP grant? Thank you, Monty. Appreciate that very much. And yeah, the pickleball courts are underway. I see you got base course down and it's all fenced and moving forward. On the subject of TFNU and trail money, boy, what a winter to be working on trails. Do we have a plan in place with TFNU to exercise their expertise in some of the trail repair that could be knocked out before the trails are busy? Have we got an action plan with them at this point?
Probably not that actionable based on the weather we're having, which is unreal. I don't think we foresaw this long of a non-winter period. So I don't think we're prepared to act as quick as would need be for that. But if you want to come up and help, no problem.
And do the new council members know that there's dinner back there? You don't need something.
I told them there was, but
Okay,
yeah.
sometimes, okay, so let me just warn you now. You might think, oh, I'll wait, it's gonna be a really short meeting. And then we're in there till 9 PM and you're like chewing your neighbor's arm off. Like, so just to warn you.
I got the bite marks right here.
Okay.
See, and while Monty's up here too, the parallel,
Well, talk
the
fast, Monty. We got.
the adjunct question is, I inquired of Mara in an email. Chris Peterson was up there with big earth moving equipment this fall and into the early winter. Did we ever discover what his intent was with his earth moving efforts up there? And if you can speak to that, that'd be great too, Monty.
Okay, sorry, I was coughing a few minutes ago, but I was actually just meeting with Eric Manning just a half hour ago.
Oh, great.
Before this meeting. So on the 30,000 that they leveraged and they've got another 30,000.
Right.
We were just meeting to discuss how we can, they send us an invoice so we can get them that money in their account. And then we were just discussing some options and things, some trail sections that need to be fixed and things. But as far as Chris Peterson piece, I don't have information on what he was moving on his property.
Okay.
So
I did hear it up there from my place, and but it was on his private property.
Yeah.
is what
Right,
you're referring,
exactly. I
Yeah.
just, every once in a while, you know, the sword is rattled and the,
He does tinker around there every now and
yeah,
again.
he does.
so-
tinker.
Yeah.
Monty, thanks for engaging with Eric at TFNU and putting a plan together. Yeah, I love that trail, and selfishly and for the greater community, it's really in need. And a section between the bench overlook and a one canyon fold to the north. It's
Yeah.
just tough in there. We could really knock some stuff out if that were attended to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know that's one of the things that's been on their mind and on our mind.
Yeah.
So,
Very good.
And I've personally fallen off the trail and slid off and tipped in some of those sections. I get it, the need. You have to, and yeah. But I want to say one thing too is we did our best to do a good job in gathering information. I'm not going to tell you that we were perfect. And I will just admit that we're never perfect. That our goal was to do it in good faith, to do a good job, to listen in good faith, and to make a good reasoned, sound judgment, sound decision based on information and input. Does that mean we're free from criticism? Of course not. We never are. But we did a good job. We did everything that we could to listen and to get the information we needed to make a good decision. But we did so in good faith, and there's a big difference between doing things in good faith, doing a good job, doing the best that you possibly can to listen and to make a good decision versus lying or misleading or trying to get to an outcome. That was not the case. I was just trying to be a responsible leader and responsible listener and decision maker. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask another question? Just, do we have other business beyond this?
No, we got no more.
Okay, I just curious on parking update with the parking structure and everything down there.
So
Okay,
so
it'd be great if people could, is it open?
we are working on a full announcement and launch. There's been a ton of logistics to build infrastructure of that type. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. No, you're good. No, you're good. I gotta hand it to the team that helped oversee the building of that thing. It's unbelievable. You really should go in and look at it and see what the asset that the public has. I know there's a lot of talk about how we did this for the developer and that for the developer. We partnered with the developer to build a public infrastructure and asset for the public that the public has full right and access to. And it is a beautiful thing. And if you're hearing anything from business owners, they're dying for parking downtown, especially since the hotel and Diamond Parking did their thing over in Electric Alley. It is an absolute limiter. And we've got a lot of businesses coming to us saying, please, for the love, when can we have more parking? We are about at that point. We'll announce some things at the State of the City on Thursday about that. And we were asked specifically, however, by the businesses not to start implementing during the Christmas Village thing. They asked us specifically to wait. So I've been seeing chatter online as to why did it go quiet? What's the timing? How does it relate with the election, et cetera, et cetera. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with listening to the business owners again. Because we're here to represent people and serve people. And I don't want to be the kind of government that doesn't try and listen. And they asked us very specifically, wait for implementation so it doesn't muddy up and confuse that Christmas Village period. So we're past that now, and we're going to start looking for unfolding some steps for you guys to consider. But during that period, during that Christmas Village period, our team was working on finishing all that construction and overseeing that. And it turned out beautifully. And we're going to open that to the public. People are going to have access to it. They're going to be able to have access to it for free and start to use the software and the app and get used to it and so on. And we'll start to announce what those timelines are for people to anticipate. Okay. And again, other logistics like painting the Grant Avenue and changing all the parking on the street, going from angled parking in one way to 2 ways and parallel parking, et cetera. Those are all the logistics that came together to finally finish, I believe, yesterday. Brand new stuff. Okay. So more to come. Thanks.